What did you think of the story that broke this morning that Sacramento will be a port in the storm for the relocating A's?
It doesn't surprise me, not one bit. Look, I mean, I thought that the city of Oakland probably did themselves a good service on this thing. They're like, all right, you're on the way out the door. We're going to expect this kind of thing if you want to extend the lease at the Coliseum. And there had already been talk about going to whether it was Salt Lake, and certainly Sacramento had popped up in the conversations. So it doesn't surprise me at all. I think that the press has been so incredibly bad. Not that it isn't self-inflicted, right? But with the fan protests and everything that's involved, I think they probably went, you know what? The amount of money that the city of Oakland's asking, which I believe honestly is fair. They came down on their cost of what they wanted to extend the lease, still was too much for them. And given, again, the fact that they have all this going on with, again, with the cost of the lease and everything that's going on and what they're doing, it doesn't surprise me.
Throughout baseball history, owners have always come in a whole bunch of different flavors, but we've never seen the flavor of unaccountable, quite like the way John Fisher has served it to us. You can't interview him. You can't talk to him. You can't ask him a question. He's not there to fill in any blanks. His, forward man, Dave Kavel, is, essentially a monorail salesman. And the whole thing is just so poorly presented at every turn. It's one thing to be bad at it. It's another thing to be bad at selling it. It's another thing to be bad at all the business that happens around it. And then it's another thing entirely to be bad at all of it. And the A's really have hit for the cycle of being bad at all of it here.
Yeah, I would have to tend to agree with it. Look, there's been obviously other cases in the past, right? I can go back and look at what happened in South Florida with the Marlins and their relocation. They weren't exactly some fine, upstanding organization that you want to go ahead and highlight. The biggest issue, of course, is that this has been something that has been taking so long. And finally, what happened, I believe, with this is that it has become, prohibitive for the league to expand to 32 teams. I think that obviously the Players Association would like that, would add another, 2 rosters to fill out. That's more players on, that the union get to represent. And it allows the league to go ahead and do regional realignment. So the A's and the Rays have stopped us, and they think they finally said, this is your best chance of doing this. It's been done so ham-handedly and so poorly that I think that the only way that you look at this with any kind of, moderately well looking at it is the long view. The long view of this is that John Fisher will not own the team in perpetuity. It's clear that at some point he goes away. So the league will look at it and go, we get into Vegas, which I suppose, you're losing a relocation, leverage city, the best city that they had for that. But again, it's just been done so ham-handedly. I think that they're just going, let's just get past this, and then we can try and look at this and try and clear the waters in the future.
Maury Brown is a senior contributor at Forbes. Did they send you like a nice money clip when you start working for Forbes to let everyone know that you're officially on the side of money now?
Yeah, right. No, not yet. Not yet. I get a nice, thank you letter.
Well, the only interest that baseball will ever go about protecting is its own business interest. And you just brought this up. Why let John Fisher ruin another market, basically? Like, why isn't expansion and all the fees that would come with new expansion team how does that not make more business sense to Major League Baseball than just ceding this very fertile soil to John Fisher, who has already salted the earth for the last 20 years on the soil that he occupied? It just seems like there was a way to force Fisher to sell, which, as you said, is going to be a foregone conclusion anyways, to do it now, keep a team in Oakland, and then expand to Las Vegas and reap all the expansion benefits that owners, get hard-ons about. Why would they just let Fisher have this?
Yeah, I think the bigger question is, so first of all, forcing owners out is not an easy feat.
Right.
I mean, it's very, very difficult. You can incentivize them. You can go, look, man, you're going to make a incredible profit on the backside of this thing. Maybe now is a good time for you to do this. But you waive the the relocation fee, which was surprising. You know, we've had Manfred have to get in there and basically strong arm and try and prop this up and play defense for him. Look, I mean, he gets paid to do that sort of thing. He's not going to sit there and belittle one of his owners. His job is, of course, to try and take care of damage control. But, you know, eventually we're going to get into Vegas. I mean, you know, I guess the league is going to look at other places like Salt Lake City, which again is a small market. There are no more large markets. There really isn't. And I think the fear with Major League Baseball as a general rule was, does the NBA beat you to the punch? It's already oversaturated, right? So you have the Golden Knights get in there first and plant the flag. They win a Stanley Cup in 6 seasons, which is extraordinary, right? The
Right.
Raiders are the Raiders, right? I mean, it's the NFL, it's event driven. You know, the WNBA has the Aces in there and they've won championships. So how long do you wait before you go, the NBA beats us to the punch? And that's the only logical conclusion I can get to this thing. I really do. I think the way that you make it work is by partnering with a casino and a hotel, and you go, hey, you know, ladies and gentlemen, if you buy a room on a Monday or Tuesday, we're going to give you free tickets with your room to go see the A's play the Rockies or whoever the heck it's going to be, right? That's the only way that it works. It counts as paid attendance, even if they're deeply discounted. And that's the only way that you're going to get these numbers to fly. When they get into that new ballpark and you look at the pictures and they give the announced attendance, people are going to go, that's not what I see with my own 2 eyes. That cannot be. But they will have sold the tickets. It'll show it on the box score, and that'll be the history of it.
Bad businessmen with fuzzy math and made-up numbers. Good luck with it, Las Vegas. You are really signing up for an adventure. The city of Sacramento is signed up for I don't know if this is an adventure, but it's certainly a turn off of the highway that the A's will be, you know, there for a little while. I guess they won't be there to do that much damage to anything. Maybe this does open up Sacramento to Major League Baseball's thinking of expansion in a few years from now. It's just the whole thing to me gets solved if we could just remove John Fisher. Like, that's the guy who is the problem here. The problem really isn't the Coliseum or the market or anything. It's just John Fisher's desire to take his toy and break it the way that he wants to break it rather than put it back in the toy box at an exorbitant profit for somebody else to play with. And it's just, the whole thing is gross. Are you surprised in any way that another owner hasn't been a little bit more outspoken or taken this opportunity to at least win some good public will with his own fan base, saying that this is not, you know, fans shouldn't be treated like this by anybody? Or is the circle that tight and that closed?
No, the circle's that tight. You just look, it just doesn't happen. And the biggest reason that Major League Baseball has been able to grow so exponentially, I believe, is that when Bud Selig was commissioner, he got the owners to quit chasing their tails. If you look at the labor history out there, the players always got a leg up on the owners. So whether it was George Steinbrenner or whether it was even Charlie Finley or Ted Turner, there was all this chaos. And they said, you know what, if we close ranks and walk in March step, we will benefit from this. So guys, you all keep to yourselves. I'm sure that Rob Manfred fields calls all the time about this situation. No one can be happy about it. They absolutely cannot be happy about this thing. Are they going to say anything publicly? Absolutely not. They're not going to do that.
How much responsibility does Rob Manfred bear for all of this being such a problem for so long? Like you just said, it started back, you know, with Lou Wolf and Bud Selig and granting John Fisher the opportunity to buy the A's over other owners, only to see what all that is, you know, happened here. Would a better commissioner have done anything here, or is any commissioner just now a straight up puppet for owners?
No, I don't think Rob had the ability to really do much more than this. I think that they could have done stuff behind the scenes. Absolutely. I'm so shocked with not doing the expansion fee. And the only logic there could be that John Fisher wasn't going to be able to finance this. And right, we've already had discussions. Are they really going to have the money to make this thing fly? So you throw that expansion fee in there, he's going to be like, Rob, I can't do it. Now, could you have forced him out at that stage and go, well, we'll find somebody that could? Yeah, you could make that case.
Yeah, bring in a
But
better
again,
brand of
right?
billionaire.
I think that it becomes very difficult. If you go back and look at the last time that you really saw ownership pushed out, this would have been Frank McCourt with the Dodgers, right? So the Dodgers are a cornerstone club in the nation's second largest market. And he was going to try and sell the TV rights to basically pay off debt. And Bud Selig said, you can't do that with our TV rights money. You can't do that. We don't have that situation here. You know, we really do have just this difficult situation. I look back and I can't find it. I saw a comment by Walter Haas going back predating Lou Wolf saying, you know, we're probably going to need to look at getting out of the ballpark at some stage. There's a precedent for this, obviously in San Francisco. The Giants were supposedly on the way out the door, right? There was all that relocation. They get the China Basin deal done. Of course, it's a jewel of a ballpark on the waterfront. Howard Terminal's kind of the same drill. The money didn't seem like it was that far apart. So I don't know. I think everybody finally just got fed up. And look, the Players Association were like, yeah, we're going to take away, if you make this deal happen, then you can keep your revenue sharing. If you don't, you're going to lose your revenue sharing. So it's not like the two sides finally said, we've had enough of this. We want to get to expansion. I honestly believe that that's what this is largely about.
I think with the power of, hindsight being 2020, I almost see Howard Terminal as a straight up poison pill that the A's actually never really wanted. They put something that seemed to be, too big in front of the city of Oakland. And the closer the city of Oakland actually got to getting to it is what I think accelerated the timeline of, well, we got to go to Vegas. Never mind. We got to go to Vegas as soon as possible.
Don't mind me over here. Power.
Oh,
the power.
Oh, we want you to have as much power as humanly possible for this interview. Maury Brown is a senior contributor at Forbes. And again, the back and forth you had with Dave Kavel about a month ago is really when I started reaching out to you to arrange this interview. Your interview with Kavel from a few weeks back, let's call it the Delusions of Grandeur interview. You seem to be blown away by how poorly he represented the A's, himself, and just like you felt like you were dealing with a monorail salesman very, very early on in that conversation.
Yeah, I think the thing that surprised me the most was his inability to read the room. And in that, I mean, you know what, if you've been having to, press the flesh and kiss babies and do whatever you had on the politics side, in Las Vegas, in Oakland, wherever, okay, whatever. Those individuals probably, haven't been up or aware of how this game works. When you go to somebody like me about it, they have to know that I understand the history of it. Anybody that's a reporter is going to understand the history of this thing.
Right. You got background on this.
Yeah. So to frame this, he reached out to me and we did I had questions about the new ballpark, like the batter's eye, where's, the bullpen's going to be, how are you going to cool it down given how the design of it was, a real straight reporting thing. And we did that and it was, fine. It was actually the story prior to this situation. And then he started going back and forth with me on Twitter and it was never, hey, this is off the record. I just want to have this commentary. I said, I don't think you really know. He said, thank you for telling me our story. And it's always good to talk to you, which I had never talked to him. So he didn't remember that. So I gave him the benefit of the doubt on that.
Big fan. Thanks for everything.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Hey, love you, Bubby. Anyway, so it really was. But when I said that it reminded me more of the Marlins and that relocation, that I believe, honestly, that it will look more like that than what they've been touting. He said, I see it more along the lines of when I brought up bringing the brand. So the A's brand is going with them. We obviously heard about this in Sacramento. They're going to keep the A's names. They're not changing it.
Right. They're dropping the city. They're going to be known as the A's or Athletics. No zip code be attached.
Right. And when they get to Vegas, it will be the Las Vegas A's. Now, maybe this is, I'm speculating here. I don't know if that means that idea, if you leave the name in Oakland, then means that expansion into Oakland is a real possibility. It always made sense to me to leave it there. But maybe the idea here is the Giants got a hold of him. Rob Manfred, the owner, said, you know what? We have no intention of going into Oakland. I don't know if that's true or not. This may be simply about we want to keep that brand to ourselves. When I mentioned, why didn't you leave it there? You know, and I mentioned the Expos to DC, which then became the Nationals, or two iterations of the Senators moving, one to Minneapolis and became the Twins, the other one to Arlington and became the Rangers. Why don't you just change the name? And he goes, I look at it more like the Dodgers. And I went, this is where the delusion kicks in, right? Okay, you're moving into the second largest market. 1957, the Giants and Dodgers both moved. It completely reshaped all of Major League Baseball. We then had the idea of air travel that opened up the doors for all the expansion that occurred. So how you tie that brand, the most iconic brand behind the Yankees and all of baseball, with maybe the Cubs the exception, how you tie those together, I don't know. But I was like, you cannot be serious. You cannot be serious. This is nothing at all like that.
Yeah, it's hard to know where the bigger disconnect is, where he sees his own franchise in the current hierarchy of teams, or how he sees the history of Major League Baseball and what moving out of New York really meant for the Dodgers and the Giants back in the 50s. Like he seems to be poorly brushed up on modern times and baseball history.
Yeah, I think that the honest belief here is if you want to go ahead and extrapolate out, obviously the Dodgers have been very successful in Los Angeles. I mean, all we have to do is look at the player payrolls and what Guggenheim has done as owners there, right? There's some past history that hasn't been great, but for the most part, they are a cornerstone franchise. The A's have been nomadic. Philadelphia to Kansas City to Oakland. They've been in Oakland longer than any other place. Now they're going to go here and play, nowhere land while they're in Sacramento and then eventually Las Vegas. And there's nothing to say that in 50 years they're in Las Vegas. So again, I don't know how you do that. It seemed like delusions of grandeur was exactly how I did it. I was like, he either honestly believes this because he's had to say it so many times to sell the deal in Las Vegas that it's there. The only other logic here is at the end of the day, Damon, if they get that ballpark, just like when the Marlins got out of South Florida and got into Miami, they made the thing happen. The owners will be happy. They're not going to be happy about the process, but they'll say, we got this behind us. Now we can move forward. So all the questions. Baseball has a long storied history of making bad decisions in the short term to the detriment of the long term. And I believe that Vegas is a long-term problem. It's moving into a small market. The media market is smaller. They will reap massive benefits on the sponsorship side. There is no doubt about it. They're going to make a killing in that department, and probably with non-baseball events. I really do believe in that sense. On the baseball side of things, if you play a game and there's nobody there, did it really happen? It's just one of those things. It's like we are getting to the point to where the fans in the seats, the actual butts in the seats, don't drive as much as other revenue streams that can be made out of this deal. And in that, I think you're starting to see it.
Will the Major League Players Union have anything to say about, oh, okay, so you're going to be playing 81 dates a year in a minor league ballpark that doesn't have two batting cages, that doesn't have, facilities for mothers or children, doesn't have any of the amenities that you would be used to, even at the dumpy ass Coliseum. Can the union prevent this from being a move for the A's?
They could, but I don't think they will. And here's why. We kind of have precedence with this, although it was one season. We had the Blue Jays play in 2021 at their spring training facility in Florida.
Right.
There was a bunch of work done to make that MLB ready, right? It's never going to be like a true major league ballpark. The Players Association is going to go, okay, guys, you know that if you do this thing, we expect X, Y, and Z. And I've already heard from the league that they plan to work with the A's to make that sort of thing happen. So again, whether the league has to help pay for this or whether the Sacramento Kings do, who are the majority owners, right, of the ballpark, again, there's a bunch of gyration that goes around this. River Cats have to absolutely love that. And I say that with as much sarcasm as I possibly can here. The scheduling is going to be crazy. Mondays are largely a travel day, in the minors. So Mondays are open, but how that all works out will be, look, there's going to be a lot of action going on in that ballpark in Sacramento for, I would say, 3 years. I know it's a 2-year deal with an option. I think that option's going to have to come.
Absolutely. Whenever the A's ask for time, the next thing they're going to need is a little bit more time. That is for sure. Tell me about that flamethrower you got hanging up behind you. That thing looks like an axe, man.
Yeah, so it's a 1980 Norland era Les Paul custom. Yeah, you can't see all of it. I have a bad habit here, Dan. I collect guitars like firewood. It's bad.
There you go. Some people got drug problems.
Yeah.
You got a guitar problem.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They're just as habitual. They just don't have lasting hangovers.
Well, hey, I so appreciate your time. The conversation you had with Kavel was just so illuminating, because to have someone who's not sitting on top of the story, but knows all the elements of the story, like swoop in for a conversation and just walk away with basically the attitude, what the did I just talk about with this guy? It lets me know that we're not crazy, because you're not crazy. So thank you for confirming we're not all crazy on this. Maury, I really appreciate your time today. Continued success, man. What else you got working on coming up for Forbes, and what's in the hopper?
Well, this is funny that you mentioned this. So I had worked with a source at the A's that said, hey, just so that you know, we're going to lose $40 million this year. Well, if you look at the Forbes valuation and the way that we get our information, they lost 11. So again, projections and what actually happens in reality are two different things when it comes to this sort of thing, especially when it seems to be the A's.
Thanks for being the real deal, Maury. Appreciate your time.
All right, man. Thanks so much for having me.